Hi, and welcome to another edition of Better Minneapolis. I'm your host, Terry White. If you like what we're doing here, please consider becoming a paid subscriber. Okay, today's episode is called Fault Lines at Minneapolis City Hall. The Minneapolis City Council passes drug paraphernalia decriminalization and a pre-eviction notice extension, but the meeting exposed deep divisions over policy, process, and who speaks for the body. Will the real leader of Minneapolis please stand up? Thursday, I spent half a day watching the Minneapolis City Council meeting and feel as though I'm still recovering. When my editor asked how it went, I struggled to find the right words. Well, if I were opening a business, the last place I would choose right now is Minneapolis. The reason is simple. The current City Council has reached a mind-numbing state of dysfunction. Members are unpredictable and lack a shared set of priorities. As we've written before, the focus must be on attracting jobs, projecting stability to investors, and shoring up a tax base that is eroding rapidly as downtown continues to hollow out. Meaningful collaboration on those priorities does not appear possible at the moment. One telling detail. City Clerk Casey Carl told the council he is struggling to find a date for a consultant-led leadership retreat because aligning the 13 schedules of council members and the mayor has proven nearly impossible. In a private business, the boss would simply require everyone to clear their calendars, because the situation is hurting the organization and it needs fixing. But in our city government, 14 people each believe their schedule and their opinions take precedence. The result is a cycle of frustration and ineffectiveness, and a city that is floundering while residents and businesses look for opportunities elsewhere. Watch the latest council meeting and you will witness personal grudges, arguments over what cooperation even means, and revolts on multiple fronts against the mayor, against the strong mayor system, minority against majority. It brings to mind the 1953 Marlon Brando film, The Wild One, in which Brando plays Johnny Stabler, a brooding delinquent who leads a motorcycle gang terrorizing a small California town. When asked what he's rebelling against, he sneers, "What do you got?" And I got a picture here of Brando, and the caption reads that Minneapolis doesn't need more rebels. It needs a boring city council that creates the order everyone can count on. There were moments in Thursday's meeting we could have clipped and shared on social media to ridicule specific members, score points, or highlight their contradictions. That behavior, practiced constantly by others, only hardens the fault lines between members and between leaders and residents. It isn't our style. We want to highlight solutions. More importantly, we want our city leaders to find solutions and actually implement them. When this newsletter becomes a boring weekly thank you note to council members, you'll know the city is on the right track. The city needs a functional government. We need 14 representatives to occasionally speak with one voice. The council and mayor were sworn in on January 5, 2026 to 4-year terms. If the current dynamic holds, expect a steady stream of slim majority ordinances, mayoral vetoes, and failed override attempts, a process that will grease the wheels of the city's decline. The mayor will seek to consolidate power in his office and work around the council whenever possible. The council will grow increasingly frustrated and escalate its attempts to remain relevant. Neither path leads anywhere good. First-hand accounts. We read several reports on Thursday's meeting. The mainstream press tends to focus on specific votes and outcomes. What gets left out is the anger and bitterness that have surfaced after a mere 100 days in office. As one council member said, near tears, I can't go on this way. It must change. Unfortunately, it can go on this way. People can remain out of work. Buildings can continue to sell for pennies on the dollar. Potholes can get deeper. More cars can be stolen. More businesses can take a chance on this city and fail. What the council and mayor often overlook is that changing this trajectory is within their power. They could turn off their social media feeds, lock themselves in a room, and stay there until they find common ground. The fact that they don't is a choice. Minneapolis cares deeply for the historically marginalized. We do not want to see people evicted. We want people to get treatment for substance use disorders and mental illness. But to provide those services sustainably, the city must have the best infrastructure in the region, the best roads, the cleanest streets, high-performing schools, safe neighborhoods, and sensible regulations that allow businesses to thrive. Minneapolis competes on a national scale for conferences, investment, and talent. Overcoming the headwinds facing the city will require a less parochial mindset from its leaders. Council meeting summary. The council passed drug paraphernalia decriminalization ordinance known as Care Over Criminalization on a 7-6 vote. Supporters argued that decriminalizing possession, not use, aligns Minneapolis with existing state law, reduces barriers for harm reduction workers, and builds trust with people struggling with addiction. One council member, drawing on his background in street outreach, spoke about how distributing clean supplies opened doors to relationships that eventually help people find housing and treatment. Opponents raised legitimate concerns. The city's own deputy city attorney testified that Metro Transit Police actively used the paraphernalia ordinance to respond to drug use complaints at bus shelters and light rail stations, and that it has historically served as a negotiating tool to steer people toward treatment. An amendment to limit decriminalization to marijuana paraphernalia only, floated as a compromise to avoid a mayoral veto, failed 6-7, and the full ordinance passed. The council also approved a 45-day pre-eviction notice extension, what they called Pause Eviction Save Lives, by a vote of 8-5. The measure was framed as a modest but meaningful response to the economic disruption left by Operation Metro Surge, which left many immigrant renters jobless and afraid to leave their homes. A pointed side debate emerged over whether the city's rental assistance application portal was actually accessible to people who hadn't received an eviction notice, a problem staff acknowledged and pledged to address. Note, we were unable to independently verify the claim made by some council members that eviction filings are at near record levels. A proposed moratorium on data centers became the meeting's most contentious procedural fight. The ordinance, introduced without attached language as a subject matter only, was postponed to the May 21st meeting, pending the conclusion of the state legislative session. Critics warned the moratorium was already sending a chilling signal to investors, citing a downtown building that sold for $235 million after being assessed at $30 million just a year ago. Supporters argued that large-scale data centers carry serious environmental and energy grid consequences that warrant study before any approvals move forward. A motion to kill the ordinance outright failed, and the broader question of whether subject matter introductions should routinely advance or can be voted down at introduction remains unresolved. I have a picture of a data center here. The Payne Letter. After the failed veto override on the Todrick Barnett nomination, Councilmember Palmisano objected to a memo Council President Payne had submitted to the city's legislative record titled The City Council's Vision for Community Safety and Todrick Barnett's Failure to Meet That Vision. Palmisano argued the memo implied a collective position the body never formally adopted, and moved to have it removed. The city clerk confirmed that the council president does not have the authority to speak for the body absent a formal vote, though he acknowledged it is a gray area council presidents frequently have to navigate. The debate that followed was one of the meeting's more revealing moments. Several members said they were never consulted and objected to being included, however implicitly, in a document they didn't author or endorse. Others defended the memo as a reasonable response to the mayor's public accusation that the council's rejection of Barnett was politically motivated rather than substantive. The motion to remove the memo failed 6-7. A suggestion to formally adopt it as the council's official position was declined, with one member cautioning that doing so would effectively create new procedural rules without a proper discussion of council governance. The letter remains in the file. Positive notes. A word of recognition for City Clerk Casey Carl, who may have the toughest job in city government. He must explain voting procedures and amendments in real time, keeping meetings from unraveling, and address every council member with patience and diplomacy regardless of what's unfolding around him. We sincerely hope he finds a date for that leadership retreat. On a lighter note, we spent our Saturday morning with Leon Bridges and his song Beyond, which is recommended listening. Thank you for reading and caring about Minneapolis. And the final picture here is from the Beyond video of Leon Bridges dancing. We hope you enjoyed the show. See you next time.